Hey everyone, I'm Ash, and you're listening to the Avenue podcast. In this series, we're diving into God's heart for justice. Through these conversations, we hope God's call to act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly becomes a lived reality in your life.
Hey everybody, we're back again with the Avenue podcast. I'm here with the one and only Ephraim Mason.
Hello.
It's good to be here. Today we're talking about Sabbath and justice, which is a very interesting combination. It's something that you wouldn't really think to pair together. What were your initial thoughts when you signed up for this, mate?
Yeah, I don't know why I signed up for this one. I thought, that's a bit interesting. It looks like a hard thing.
Good challenge.
So that's why I chose it.
Nice.
And then I realized, it's pretty hard to link together.
So bear with us.
Yeah. But there are some things there.
Yeah.
So we'll get into it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we want to look at a few passages today. Actually, just two passages we want to focus on. We'll probably reference some other ones. But both these texts are found in Isaiah. And I want to read Isaiah 56, and I'll be reading from verses 1 to verses 8. And then Ephraim will be reading Isaiah 58. So Isaiah 56 verses 1 onwards says, "This is what the Lord says, be just and fair to all. Do what is right and good, for I am coming soon to rescue you and to display my righteousness among you. Blessed are all those who are careful to do this. Blessed are those who honor my Sabbath days of rest and keep themselves from doing wrong. Don't let foreigners who commit themselves to the Lord say, 'The Lord will never let me be a part of his people.' And don't let the eunuch say, 'I'm a dried up tree with no children and no future.' For this is what the Lord says, I will bless those eunuchs who keep my Sabbath days holy, and who choose to do what pleases me and commit their lives to me. I will give them within the walls of my house a memorial and a name, far greater than the sons and daughters could give. For the name I give them is an everlasting one, it will never disappear. I will also bless the foreigners who commit themselves to the Lord, who serve him and love his name, who worship him and who do not desecrate the Sabbath day of rest, and who hold fast to my covenant. I'll bring them to my holy mountain of Jerusalem and will fill them with joy in my house of prayer. I will accept their burnt offerings and sacrifices, because my temple will be called a house of prayer for all nations. For the sovereign Lord, who brings back the outcasts of Israel, says, I will bring others too, besides my people of Israel."
Yeah, amazing. And then 58, reckon all of it?
We can read maybe from verses to the end part, maybe from just 13 and 14. I reckon that's where it really focuses.
Yeah, great. Here we go. 58 verse 13. "If you keep my feet from breaking the Sabbath and from doing as you please on my holy day, if you call the Sabbath a delight and the Lord's holy day honorable, and if you honor it by not going your own way, and not doing as you please or speaking idle words, then you will find your joy in the Lord, and I will cause you to ride in triumph on the heights of the land, and to feast on the inheritance of your father Jacob."
Yeah, wow. Amazing text. And I think what these texts show is that, first and foremost, this idea of Sabbath is for all. And it really captures this idea of rest very, very profoundly. What sticks out to you as you're reading this?
Yeah, just going off of what you were saying there, for all.
Yeah.
With that, in chapter 56, a lot of different types of people were looked at, and Isaiah or the Lord is saying, all these people I've given my Sabbath, this gift of rest, to all of these different types of people. And he's kind of going back, reiterating, like all the way into creation, how all man is made equal.
Yeah.
And these people that are listed in here, they are generally lower society, downtrodden people.
Yeah.
And it's just reminding us through Isaiah, hey, you are all equal, and my Sabbath, this gift, is for everyone.
Yeah, 100%. It singles out eunuchs as well, and eunuchs. Do you know what eunuchs were?
Yeah, would you like me to explain?
You want me to explain? How do I say this without getting censored?
Yeah.
Private parts chopped off.
Yeah,
Yeah,
pretty much.
is that a good way of putting it?
Yeah. And for context, because they often worked in Queen's courts or something like
Exactly.
that. Didn't want no funny business going on.
Exactly. Yeah, so these guys were outcasts. And there's actually a verse in the Bible, and I think that is in Deuteronomy 23, verse 1, which says that anyone who is incarcerated can't enter into a temple.
Yeah. Castrated.
Sorry.
Probably incarcerated.
Yeah. Maybe that
Yeah.
too. But yeah. And so eunuchs weren't able to enter into the temple at all.
Wow.
So they were outcasts from the temple. But here is a really profound verse because it's actually including eunuchs in this theme of the Sabbath.
Yeah.
They are invited to participate in the Sabbath as rest, which I think is showing that there is an element of Sabbath that is a great equalizer for all people.
Yeah.
Whether you're poor, whether you're rich, whether you're an outcast, or whether you're part of the in crowd, like the Sabbath is for all. And no matter who you are welcome to be a part and participate in this rest.
Yeah, definitely. And that's just one way that God shows his justice. I don't know if we've defined justice earlier in this series, but I think defining it now again might be good.
Give us your definition. How do you say?
I reckon the biblical definition of justice would be pulling those who are lower or downtrodden up, supporting them, providing for the those in need, and even to the extent of advocating for others, and ultimately a social change, so that everybody is on that equal level. But in the same, it's a bit of two things. So it's that, and it's also renouncing or calling out those who are wicked or doing wrong, and making sure that consequences for wrong action is given.
It's both that restorative justice and that retribution aspect of justice as well, which is something that you actually see in the Sabbath quite clearly. And if we go back to the command that God gives to the Sabbath in Exodus 20, there's two elements to that. There's two wings to that idea of Sabbath that God is presenting to the people of Israel. It says, don't work on the Sabbath, you need to rest on the Sabbath. That's what he says to the people of Israel. But then he also says, don't make your manservant work. Don't make the people under your care work as well. Even the animal gets singled out and says, like, the animal shouldn't work as well on the Sabbath. So there is this idea that you need to rest, but then it's also about extending rest to other people. And I think by doing that, no matter where you are in the social hierarchy, you're all equal. Like, those social hierarchies are suspended for a time on the Sabbath because there is this rest.
Yeah, that's great. Good stuff.
And I think, like, what does that look like practically? Because I think one thing I find a little bit difficult, and probably you might find this as well, is how do we balance that rest versus extending rest to others?
And something that I've struggled with is this exact thing. How do we find a balance? You see, Jesus goes out, he does a lot of healings on the Sabbath. Heals a cripple's hands. He makes the lame man walk, and he takes up his mat. All of these things happen on the Sabbath. But then you have this other view of the Sabbath where, you're meant to relax and somewhat inwardly focused with your relationship. And I don't know, I've struggled personally with by going out and helping people, very basic example, but soup kitchens or some form of charity or something. Where am I getting my rest from? I don't know if you find it the same struggle or if you're fine with it. Definitely,
I really struggle with that as well, because a lot of the times my Sabbath experience is filled with just serving and pouring out. And it can be quite taxing. And for me, that's where you need to have both wings with the Sabbath. It's really important. and I don't think it's something that you need to grow in. It's something that you learn to do better over time, but it's not something that you're going to master straight away, because you need to have the two wings in balance, the two things in tension, where you're resting yourself, but then from that place of rest, you're overflowing and also giving other people rest through what you're saying, like healing, what Jesus did with healing people on the Sabbath. Like, it seems like every time Jesus is actually intentionally healing people on the Sabbath, and most of the time it's people with chronic illness. Is showing what the Sabbath is all about. It's about releasing people from their yoke of bondage on the Sabbath. And in the same way, I think we need to look at how we can do that and capture this theme of Sabbath as a means of justice and releasing people from their bonds of oppression and pain.
Yeah. In building up to this, the way I thought about it was ask myself, where is the rest in Sabbath rest like coming from? And I think for a long time, I thought it's just from the day, the Sabbath day. I'm putting down my work for the day, and that's what's giving me the rest. But like, anybody can do that. Just stop work for a day. And not everybody's going to get that same rest, the same Sabbath rest. So I think that where the rest is really coming from is from Jesus.
Come on.
You know?
That's
Jesus says, he's many things. He says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. He's the everlasting water, and he sustains us and so on. But he also says, all those who are weary and heavy burdened, come to me and I will give you rest. So he's saying, I am your rest. And so the way I've resolved it in me is that the rest on the Sabbath comes from Jesus. And the Sabbath is just a day for me to, better focus on Jesus. And then as far as justice goes, well, Jesus, God, is our ultimate, is the ultimate justice, and source of justice. So, and there's a lot of ways in me like seeking and finding Jesus. And one of those ways is through doing justice. So when I do justice on the Sabbath, I can find him in those places. Though it might not, like, it may seem unlikely, like I'm out there doing things, working, maybe it's tiring, but I'm finding Jesus in those places because he shows up in places of justice because he's a God of justice.
That's right. Jesus is always hanging around the marginalized. So if you want to look for Jesus, you look amongst the poor, you look amongst the marginalized, and you see Jesus revealed through there. And I love what you've said, because I think a lot of the time we get so fixated on Sabbath as just this one day. And yes, Sabbath is about resting on a day, but it's also, we can't miss the theme of what Sabbath is all about. If it's all about that one day and that one day doesn't affect the rest of your other days, then you're not really doing that day very well. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's where we need to not just capture the day of the Sabbath, but understand the spirit and the theme of what Sabbath is all about, which is rest in God, rest for other people as well, extending that rest for other people. And you can imagine that all these people who are listening to this command, when they're keeping the Sabbath and practicing Sabbath, they're stopping work, and those who are under their rule, although they're workers, like, they can no longer use them and make the most of them, like, because every worker now is ensured the right to rest. Essentially everyone has that right to rest, and those social hierarchies, they're momentarily suspended. And for me, that's what has shaped my understanding of Sabbath a lot, is that when it comes to Sabbath, I try and fix my mind away from the narratives of consumerism that is so prevalent in this world. That's the cultural narrative that so heavily invades us from week to week. But Sabbath is about me saying no to consumerism and saying yes to giving and receiving, and stepping into this new kingdom reality of other-centered love, of giving and receiving mutually.
Wow. Yeah. But with so to make it again a bit more tension in there.
Yeah. Bring it.
Do you think like this sort of pursuit of justice on the Sabbath is the best way to experience the Sabbath, or is it just one method or like practice in which we rest and seek God, or is it the best or the only?
I think it's an angle. Yeah, that's the way I would put it. I wouldn't say it's the only. I wouldn't put absolutes on that, but I would say it's definitely a way in which you can see God. And some people have a very self-centered understanding of Sabbath, where it's just, okay, I'm just going to sleep and nap, and that's all it is for me. But you see so much that, like Isaiah 58, what it was saying was, if you don't pursue your own interests on that day, but enjoy the Sabbath and speak of it with delight as the Lord's holy day. Meaning, it's not just about fulfilling your needs. It's not about just getting to do what you want. It's actually about aligning your values with the values of the kingdom.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time that means pouring out and giving to people. But then at the same time, you can go to the other extreme where you're just burning yourself out. But that's not a value of the kingdom either. Yeah. The value of the kingdom is not burning yourself out by endless work. It's about overflowing in your relationship and pursuit of Jesus, I think. That's how I would see it. What about you?
Yeah, I see like a bit of in what you just drew out there with that 58 Sabbath verse, and really 58 as a whole, a bit of a result or a bit of a promise coming out there. Not to say that if you do good things, you'll experience a good life, or if you're a bad person, your life will suck, because we see that, you know, the wicked prosper and the righteous suffer constantly today and throughout history. But I think there is a bit of a promise in there that or a rule of life that when you follow God and his ways, you draw closer to him, with one of those ways being practicing the Sabbath, then he starts to show up, or you see him more, or like we reflect him more because we're drawing closer to him in life. And so I think that we see more justice in life as we draw closer to him, or we are able to be more just and do more just acts as we draw closer to him. And Sabbath is one of those ways that we draw closer to him.
And that's, I think what you've spoken is really amazing, because I think what I'm hearing is that you're saying Sabbath is a means and it's a tool by which we can learn to be more just people, learn to live more justly, to love mercy, to walk humbly with God. Micah 6 verses 8. Like that's what we started off the series with. And I think that when we are Sabbathing well, then we become more like what that verse is saying. We are changed and we're transformed, and we are more moving to the rhythms of God's kingdom, and we are learning to love other people better. We're learning to not build up wealth and just be consumers all the time, but we're learning to be people who can love people sacrificially and give of ourselves. And I think when we do that, that's when we really model the values of the kingdom, and Sabbath is one of those ways in which we can do that.
Wow. Well put.
So thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it. Hope that you can see that integration between Sabbath and justice really nicely there. There's so much more that we could have unpacked with things like Jubilee years and sabbatical years as well, but we won't go into that. And I just hope that you can see that Sabbath is about giving rest for yourself, but also rest to others, and in that you are stepping into the kingdom of justice, and you're helping other people to see a God who invites us to rest. Maybe we can finish with a verse, Matthew 28 verses 19 to 20. Sorry, no, not Matthew 28, 19 to 20. Matthew 11 verses 28 to 30. I just nearly got that confused with the Great Commission. Do you want to read that, Ephraim?
Yeah, I can do that. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light.
Thanks for listening to the Avenue podcast and our series on justice. We believe conversations about faith, life, and the scriptures help us to walk in our God-given potential. My name is Gracie, and if you want to learn more about our community and get in touch with us, you can connect with us through the handle @Avenue Mission on social media platforms.